Today was the first press conference for Donald Trump's press secretary, Karoline Leavitt. And if you assumed she was a pretty white lady with a noticeable cross necklace, you were right. And of course she was Trump's press secretary during the campaign, but that was all about trashing Joe Biden.
Karoline Leavitt took on liberal host Ethan Caldwell in a heated live interview, and the results were nothing short of explosive. What happens when a conservative politician flips the script on a liberal host? In this showdown, Karoline didn't just defend her stance, she exposed shocking truths about where taxpayer money is going. Did Ethan Caldwell underestimate her? The tension was palpable as the cameras rolled, and Ethan Caldwell began his usual routine of attacking conservative policies. With a smug grin on his face, he aimed to corner Karoline Leavitt into defending the typical Republican narrative. The topic at hand was government spending, a hot-button issue, as the country faced mounting debates over budget allocation and fiscal responsibility. Ethan, clearly confident, launched his first salvo. Republicans love to talk about cutting waste, he said. But let's be honest, you're just as guilty of wasting taxpayer money as anyone else. Private jets for government officials, luxury retreats, tax cuts for billionaires. Doesn't that seem like a contradiction?
Now she's in an elevated position representing the White House, and she's here to talk about what the administration is going to do moving forward.
When Joe Biden was in the Oval Office, or upstairs in the residence sleeping, I'm not so sure.
Oh, shit! Didn't you see that coming, did you, old man, huh?
The audience laughed, some nodding in agreement, waiting for Karoline's response. It was a typical move for a liberal host trying to expose the hypocrisy they believed existed in conservative leadership. Most guests would fumble, but Karoline wasn't just another politician. She remained calm, her expression unfazed as she prepared to turn the tables. Ethan, thinking he had the upper hand, didn't realize that Karoline was about to expose a much deeper issue, one that would completely shift the narrative. With the quiet confidence of someone who knew the truth, she leaned forward and began her response, setting the stage for what would be a game-changing moment.
Today, everyone wants to know about the federal spending freeze that Trump's been doing. So what's that about?
We've seen the Biden administration spend money like drunken sailors.
Oh, boom! Drunken sailors! Everyone knows they spend so much money.
With a slight smirk of her own, Karoline leaned forward. She didn't rush to respond. She had the patience of a seasoned politician. "You want to talk about waste?" she said, tilting her head slightly. "Fine. Let's talk about where millions of your tax dollars are actually going." Ethan blinked, and the audience shifted uncomfortably in their seats. This wasn't the usual back and forth. Karoline wasn't interested in being baited by generic accusations of hypocrisy. No, she was about to drop a bombshell. With a deliberate move, Karoline reached into her bag and pulled out a stack of official government reports. The sound of the paper hitting the table echoed through the silent studio. She didn't speak immediately, letting the tension build in the room. 50 million, Karoline said, her voice sharp and unwavering. That's how much the Biden administration just sent overseas to find condoms in Gaza.
DOJ and OMB also found that there was about to be 50 million taxpayer dollars that went out the door to fund condoms in Gaza. That is a preposterous waste of taxpayer money. So that's what this pause is focused on, being good stewards of tax dollars.
The reaction in the studio was immediate and intense. Gasps filled the air. Some audience members were wide-eyed. Others exchanged shocked glances. Ethan's smirk disappeared. For the first time in his career, he was caught completely off guard. The producers, usually quick to cut to commercial when things got too heated, were frozen in place. No one knew how to handle this. Ethan's face turned pale as he tried to process what Karoline had just revealed. He stammered, struggling to regain his composure, and attempted to counter her point. He shook his head slightly, clearly rattled, and mumbled that he didn't think her information was entirely accurate. Without missing a beat, Karoline calmly tapped the stack of reports in front of her. "It's right here," she said, her voice steady. A line-by-line breakdown of the Biden administration's foreign aid spending. $50 million to Gaza. Tell me, Ethan, does that sound like responsible spending to you? Is that what the American people signed up for? The audience was stunned. The once confident host was now visibly rattled, trying to find something, anything, to counter Karoline's evidence. But there was nothing. The facts were there, staring everyone in the face, and they couldn't be ignored. The room was thick with tension as Ethan struggled to recover. His attempt to steer the conversation back to his talking points about foreign aid fell flat. He tried to downplay the issue, suggesting it was irresponsible to focus on a single expenditure. But Karoline wasn't letting him off the hook that easily. With a sharp, unwavering tone, she countered, pointing out that for everyday Americans, issues like taxpayer dollars being spent overseas hit far too close to home. The impact was immediate. The audience, who had been quiet just moments before, began reacting openly, clapping, shaking their heads, and murmuring in disbelief. Karoline had completely flipped the script. Ethan, who had prided himself on his quick wit, now appeared trapped and visibly flustered. He shifted uncomfortably in his seat, trying to laugh it off, but the discomfort was palpable. The camera zoomed in, capturing his growing unease as the once confident host realized he had lost control of the conversation. No matter how hard he tried, the tables had been turned. Karoline wasn't finished yet. She leaned in, her voice steady and strong. You want to talk about spending? Let's talk about the bigger picture. In just the last 12 months, the U.S. has sent $1.2 billion to Gaza. That's not just one program, Ethan. That's a trend. The audience gasped. Some people even started clapping. Karoline was on fire. Ethan, meanwhile, was losing the battle, and he knew it. His face was turning red under the studio lights as he scrambled for a response. Well, I think you're oversimplifying a very complex issue. Ethan tried again, forcing a chuckle. The U.S. has always contributed to foreign aid. It's part of our global responsibility. Karoline raised her hand, silencing Ethan with a calm but firm gesture. She made it clear that what was simple wasn't the complexity of foreign aid or policy. It was the undeniable truth that Americans were fed up. They were tired of their tax dollars being squandered on questionable programs while struggling to make ends meet. Karoline emphasized that Ethan, and those like him, had built their careers on protecting a system that was failing ordinary citizens. As the words landed, the crowd erupted. Some even stood up and applauded. Ethan, now completely exposed, sat in stunned silence, his credibility crumbling before the live audience. With his back against the wall, Ethan tried to do what any host in his position would do: shut the conversation down. Well, unfortunately, we're out of time, he said quickly, forcing a tight-lipped smile. Always a pleasure, Karoline. Karoline, unfazed, smirked. Of course, she said smoothly, leaning back in her chair, knowing full well what had just happened. Thanks for having me. The moment the cameras cut, the damage was already done. Clips of the interview went viral within minutes. Headlines were quick to follow. Karoline Leavitt destroys Ethan Caldwell on live TV, they read. Ethan Caldwell left speechless after conservative exposes Biden's foreign aid spending. Social media exploded with reaction. Fans were quick to praise Karoline for calling out the waste of taxpayer dollars. Even some liberals began to question Ethan's handling of the debate. The internet exploded after the showdown. On Twitter, one user tweeted, "Karoline Leavitt just wiped the floor with Ethan Caldwell. She's a powerhouse." Another added, "I've never seen a host go from smug to speechless so quickly. Karoline had him cornered from the start." Instagram was flooded with memes of Ethan's stunned face, turning his awkward silence into viral gifs like, "When your whole narrative crumbles in front of millions." Even some liberal commentators couldn't ignore the disaster. One tweet read, "I'm liberal, but Ethan Caldwell really fumbled this one." Karoline Leavitt schooled him. The reaction was clear. Karoline had dominated, and Ethan was left scrambling. When the dust settled, it was clear. Karoline Leavitt had not only won the debate, she had walked away with the moral high ground. She exposed the hypocrisy of the current administration's spending, and in doing so, she gained the respect of people across the political spectrum. The backlash against Ethan Caldwell continued long after the interview. His credibility took a serious hit, and the liberal host found himself facing criticism from all sides. Meanwhile, Karoline Leavitt's star continued to rise. She had proven herself not only as a skilled politician, but as someone who could stand up to the establishment and hold them accountable. In the end, this wasn't just another political debate. It was a defining moment in the fight for fiscal responsibility and accountability. Karoline Leavitt showed that you don't need to yell or get emotional to make a powerful point. Sometimes, all it takes is the truth and a little bit of confidence. So, what do you think? Was Karoline right to call out the Biden administration's foreign aid spending? Or do you think she went too far? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and let us know who you think came out on top in the showdown. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more updates on the latest political drama and behind-the-scenes moments that everyone's talking about.